Most obvious basic question, your why. Why this course? Why now?
You're right. How do I make this concise? Yeah, from what context do we approach this, here's one thing that I would say that I think is important about the course. So art for a long time has sort of in the background been using this foundation that Ken Wilber and Dustin DePerno wrote about in a white paper called Towards Deliberately Developmental Civilizations. And it's sort of a roadmap, making an argument for this idea of wholeness, and that wholeness requires an integration of states of consciousness, with structures of consciousness, and shadow work. And I found that really resonant. And I've been sort of holding that up against the courses that we've built in Authentic Relating Toronto over the past couple of years. And I always wanted to make sure whatever we're doing in the group, it's touching on these things, one or more of these things. And then coming across John Vervaeke's work a couple of years ago, when Peter got me that opportunity to circle him, and then John starts talking about circling in his course and his online course, The Awakening from the Meaning Crisis, which you and I have been spending the past few months watching separately, but then coming back together and talking about it. John's really laying out a very compatible foundation of what's necessary to awake from our meaning crisis. And that is the integration. Well, he doesn't use these terms, the integration of states and structures, the integration of states would be spirituality, and then structures would be science, that reintegration of those two things. So John's done a really great job laying out a framework for it. And then in my time with John, it's sort of, and other people who were talking at that time a couple of years ago about sort of this idea of in the sense making sphere of how do we create better sense making. And John, sort of me and him at the same time, John's phrase was like, take circling and drop a problem into it. And it was sort of around that time where it's like, yeah, like I kind of want to, and it wasn't sparked by that, but it was all these things happening in this time. And it's like, I want to work on sort of like a modality or some sort of practice where we're integrating all three perspectives, the I, the we, and the it. Because I found in circling, we don't spend a lot of time on the it. And then in other sort of, other dialogical practices, we're not really too focused on the we space on, or really all that much on the I. We're just sort of debating ideas rather than also bring ourselves into the debate of ideas. So I did a lot of experiments in late 2019 and in 2020 online. And yeah, it's just sort of been this trajectory. I think there's a fairly decent practice there in the collective intelligence campfire. And I sort of see a progression of what it might take to have us be able to engage in these sorts of conversations where we're flowing with the I, with the we, while we're sort of focused on an external it. And that just feels really relevant. One, this idea of the meaning crisis, but in terms of what we're seeing out there in terms of the culture war and sort of this recognition of systemic problems out in the world in terms of unsustainable behavior, unsustainable policy, unsustainable structures. It just feels like if we can better integrate these, especially for people who have, position where they can make structural changes, systemic changes, that this foundation would be really helpful to create sustainable changes rather than for us to just repeat the problems of the past and just make something novel and not really consider all perspectives that are available. So I really see this as sort of a bit of a training ground for interpersonal awareness, intersubjective awareness, as well as improving our sense making. So that's sort of my long-winded trajectory of how we kind of got to here, or why I'm sort of focusing in this area now.